Alrighty, welcome back. This week we are going to be discussing the Becker and Axley readings. Again, not always the most fun set of readings, but I think that they're very interesting, right? What Becker and Axley are trying to get us to realize and recognize is that communication is not just sending and receiving messages, right? It's not just this transmission model, but it is creating, informing, and sharing meaning through the use of messages, okay? So specifically as it relates to the Axley reading, we are thinking about communication as a process here, right? And the goal of that process is to understand how we are creating meaning together, whether that's you and I as individuals, whether that is our class, whether that is our Seed Boulder community, whether that is our country, whatever, right? So the kinds of questions that we're asking are, how do we use communication to coordinate and control different activities, right? And further, how do we navigate those kinds of situations with other people involved, okay? And so from the Axley process perspective, we don't communicate as a verb, okay? We are part of communication. So we are not communicating verb. We are a part of the process of communication, which is a noun, okay? I do want you to learn for yourself and for the purposes of this class and your exams, the difference between communication and communications. So I put an image there. If you are describing yourself as a communications major, you are wrong. And so I want you to go look that up. I want you to be aware of it because those details matter, right? When you're applying for jobs, a lot of you are going to say you're detail oriented. And if you say that you have a communications degree from the University of Colorado Boulder, that's a huge detail that you have absolutely incorrect. I always tell this story. I used to work for the Kansas City Chiefs in between my PhD and my master's. And I was aware that I was going to start my PhD. And so I was helping my boss find my replacement. And HR sent over a bunch of resumes, and my boss pretty much asked me to online stock these two people and go over their resumes and give her what I thought and who I might think would be the best fit. Both of them had communication degrees, and I did take the time to make sure that the universities they went to were communication degrees. But one of them said that she had a communications degree. And the other one knew what her degree was. And so that little detail in my job in Kansas City was very, very detail oriented. That little detail is the reason that one person got the job over another. So it matters, right? Knowing not only what your degree or your minor is in is important, but being able to know the difference between communication as a process and communications, which is a more technical kind of thing. You would get a communications degree from a tech school of some kind, but definitely check out that image. And keep that in mind, is that the way we look at it, communication is something that we are doing together. It is a process that we are navigating to share messages and create meaning as a unit, right? And then we are looking at meaning as something that exists when we're talking about that transactional model. Meaning is out there, right? The meaning of life or what this Sharpie is or does just exists already, independently of if we know it or not. And the transactional model just helps us share it back and forth, right? That two cans with the string metaphor versus something that is created, right? This Sharpie could be a chew toy for my puppy. Sometimes she would love that, right? It could be a fidget tool for me. It could be life-changing. I don't know how. But it is a meaning that is created, right? Not just its meaning exists. We can get a little bit more meta with that as we're thinking about it. And as we think about meaning, there are a couple of different, ways to do that as well, right? From the individual, the collective, or the contingent critical perspectives. You will need to know about those three things, right? Ultimately being that if we are seeing communication as a process, we also see culture as something that is created through communication. And why that matters is because if culture is created through communication, it's also changed through communication. right? Maybe the way that we used to talk about race or gender or ability, or all of these issues that you guys grew up seeing and that I grew up seeing, right? Communication changed the culture around those sort of things, right? And we can continue to do that when we recognize communication as a process and we use these different perspectives on meaning to figure out where we want our communication to fall, okay? So keep those things in mind. Like I said, you do need to think about meaning in terms of the individual, the collective, and the contingent critical. So if you have questions, let me know. You do need to know, this is on the exam, the difference between communication and communications. And make sure that you are doing those readings. Make sure you are checking your Canvas for any updates and things like that, including feedback. And I will talk to you all soon. See you later.